Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games, back with another really cool repair video for you this evening. We've been wanting to do another jukebox pretty soon, and guess what? The time has come. We're going to fix up this baby. Look at this thing. This is a 1962 Seeburg DS-160 jukebox. The DS stands for directional stereo, or directional sound, maybe. It had these speakers on the top that could move. It was a beautiful old Seeburg machine that we bought a while back off of a woman, and it was the last year that Seeburg still had its visible mechanism, which you can see through this slit in the glass here. Look at this. Janet's Music and Game Room. So we bought this from Miss Janet herself a while back. Whenever we bought it, it was still working. It had a few issues where it wouldn't select some of the records and stuff like that, but we're going to go through it and see what it needs and get it where it's working really nice again. Get some good records in it and sell it to someone for their game room. It may actually, looks like it's got records in it. I think the records that we're looking at are actually in the machine. That's pretty cool. This is a Seeburg. If you're into jukeboxes, you know all about this. But you know, we like doing videos for people. Some of our people that watch are a lot younger, and they may not know anything about jukeboxes. But basically, all of the different companies that made jukeboxes filed different patents and things to make completely different mechanisms, and they were all kind of fighting with each other and suing each other and everything else. I guess I don't have the keys where I can open it up right now, but the Seeburgs are well known for having one of the most reliable mechanisms and one of the most beautiful mechanisms. So depending on the year, all of the companies had different things. So you've seen us probably work on a lot of rock-olas where there's a basket of records on the left, and the records turn around until it gets to the right record, and when it does, a bow lifts up the record and puts it on the turntable. So that was rock-ola's design. If you've seen us do some of the row AMI jukeboxes, at least the little bit more modern ones, the records were in the back in a big basket that turned. Whenever they got to the right one, a bow would grab it, put it on the turntable in front of it, and play it. The Wurlitzers had a couple designs. The original design where they had a stack of platters with the 78 on it, it would push out the one that you selected, and then a spindle would come up, grab the record, and push it up to the top underneath a needle and play it. And so, as you can see, all of the designs were completely different so that they couldn't say that they ripped each other off. So Seeburg, whoever came up with this, and I'm pretty sure the gentleman that did come up with this, his name's known, he's a legend. They invented, way back in the day, I think it was in the 50s, may have been even in the 40s, but invented this Tormat system. I can't remember the name of the mechanism. I'll look all that up and put it later in the video, but basically the way theirs works is all of the records are at the back of the machine, which you can barely see them in there. I'll open it up here in a minute. Of course, we're going to work on it, but all of the records are in the back in a cartridge, a rack, and then this is the actual turntable, and this turntable travels down a track until it gets to the record, and then the record is pushed out and the plays vertically with the needle laying on it. And it was the turntable can play, of course, either side of the record as it sits. So there's two. All right, I went and got the key just so we could look inside of it, so I can give you a better little picture of how this thing works. It has all of the records in a magazine in the back, and then this turntable moves down to wherever the record is that it wants to play and pulls it out. And also, I looked it up, and it's called the Selectomatic mechanism, and that's the mechanism, and the way that it stores the selections is called the Tormat memory system, which is a miraculous little creation in itself. We'll get into all that later, I'm sure. These are kind of considered like the coolest jukeboxes, and they're also kind of I don't know that they're hard to fix, but they're so different than everything else that it, you know, you gotta work it a little bit. So this box here looks fairly clean. It almost looks like there's oil or something down in here, though. I hope that's not WD-40. It is some kind of oil, though. I hate WD-40. It just gums stuff up. It's not good, not good. But this all feels real slick. So it's some kind of grease. So whenever it pulls out that record, it puts it up here on this turntable. You can take this cover off, but puts it on this turntable, and then this stylus here, or this tone arm here, has a stylus on either side, so it can play either side of the record. It's just a really cool design, which we will see doing its thing here in a little bit. So yeah, everything looks cool. There's probably not going to be anything down in there except speakers. I always open them up just to look and see if anything's got thrown around or something in the wrong spot, or like this bulb's hanging out, or a record's halfway out, so when it starts it breaks the record in half. You know, you just want to make sure everything looks good. Everything on this looks like it's in its original spot, the best I can tell, and everything looks cool. So we'll turn it around, and I'll see if there's a service door on the back or anything like that. But I don't. Oh yeah, I mean there must be, because the amp is not up here. So we'll pull it out and look at the back of it. So here's the back of this beautiful machine. I wonder, I think maybe it's been repainted. If you, well, I don't know. If you look, see how that's been taped. So I don't know if that was taped so they could repaint it, or if that was a process that they did whenever they put the logo on it. I don't know. I think maybe it's been repainted though. But it looks good either way. Seeburg Select-O-Matic DS-160H. I don't know what the H symbolizes. I'll have to look that up. Okay. And we got this nice door down here. Master volume control. Main switch, record reject, and this is on there. And again, this looks like it's been painted, so. But they did a really nice job with it. Nice little key lock here. Two big old, I'm gonna guess 8-inch speakers. It says, important, be sure to set this switch correctly when equipment is installed. Our twin stereo speakers in use without jumpers between VC18 ground or something like that in the same room as this phonograph? Yes or no? Seeburg Stereo Network Type SN4, the Seeburg Corporation, Chicago 22, Illinois. Okay, so over here, I know it's dark, but we'll look at it again here whenever we start working on it. There's the coin unit. Down below it is a coin box. I don't see anything over on the right side, but on the back of the door you have this. So this would be your amplifier. Stereo operation. Monaural operation. And then this would be your, it says tone control settings, but I guess that's your power supply basically. So yeah, nice little complete, good looking machine. With this door open, this little door hinges open. Boom, boom, boom. And here's the back of your selector. Now this right here, see the little pin? Now notice that that pin is connected to the unit that's up front with the turntable on it. And then look when it travels, it has little contacts that it can go on. See them? And that is the famous, the brilliant, the genius Tormat memory unit. it was basically a computer that was on their box in 1949 or something like that, or 48 maybe. And maybe it's a little later than that. I think the rack and the mechanism was like the late 40s, and the Tormat unit, I don't know if it was on the very first ones like that, but either way, sometime around there. And they used that all the way up until their last 45 box, which was like 86 or something like that. So for nearly 40 years they used the same exact, well, basically the same mechanism. Some of them would play 100 selections, some of them would play 160 selections. Let's see if there's any good records. Jim Statford, My Girl Bill, Wildwood Weed. We'll go ahead and put that one right back where it was. Let's pull out another one at random, see what I'm looking at here. The Mamas and the Papas, Somebody Groovy, and California Dreamin'. That's a little better. Just for that, we'll pull out another one. John Waite, For Your Love, and Missing You. So as not to leave it on a low note. Gary Puckett in the Union Gap, Don't Give In to Him, and This Girl Is a Woman Now. That was a pretty big hit, wasn't it? Okay, so it looks like everything's pretty complete and all that stuff. So I guess we're going to plug it in and try it just to see if it does anything. And then I'm going to show you a couple books that we're going to use to help us fix it, and that you can use to fix yours too. Now remember, this is a Seeburg DS-160, but if you've got any Seeburg, it's pretty much the same thing. So if you have a Seeburg jukebox, this is what you need to do. So there's a book that I've got that I ordered, that you need to order too, that'll tell you how to work on these Seeburgs. Okay, so here's the books and the paperwork and everything that we need to fix it. So first, we've got the service manual. So, you know, I'm like everybody else. I don't want to pay a bunch of money for a service manual, right? But if you don't, you're pretty much not going to be able to fix it. I mean, this thing has everything in it. Troubleshooting guide, parts catalog. It's got all of the schematics, how everything works. It's got all of the different options and everything for each one. It tells you how to, you know, do the pickup balance adjustment, how to do the trip switch reset adjustment. It's just full of information. And so you kind of have to have this. If you don't have this, you're going to be, you know, spinning around in circles. So hopefully if you buy one, it's already got it with it, and somebody else bit the bullet. Let me show you what biting the bullet looks like, by the way. In the back of this particular manual, somewhere here, look at it. So this is a 1962, nice looking machine. So in the back of this particular manual it says record of this jukebox. So they call this prominence, I think. I believe they call this prominence. The history of something. So on the back of this it has the serial number, and then down here they had a wall box with it at some point, and they bought it in October of '94 for $1,800. Now that was kind of in the 90s. I think some of these boxes were actually worth more money because you had more people around that remembered playing them back in the day. This is a 62, so in the 90s, people in their 50s that played it whenever they were in their 20s back in the day, this would be their thing, right? So I don't think they're quite worth as much anymore. We'll probably still sell it for something around that, though. So anyway, you have to have the manual. like I said, I don't like paying for them either, but what are you going to do? You need it. This is something you need, right? Now, if you're working on a Seeburg, the other thing I would recommend that you get is Mr. Ron Rich's Seeburg Mechanism Guide. This is the second edition. I don't know what the first edition is like. I don't know Ron Rich, but I do know that he knows what he's talking about on Seeburgs. There is a forum on the internet called Jukebox Addicts, ADDICTS. I can hardly pronounce that word. Jukebox Addicts. Addictions without the shun on it. Jukebox Addicts, plural. It's a forum that Mr. Rich has set up where, guess what they do? They help people fix their jukeboxes. And it's all free. But since it's free, you probably need to bite the bullet and buy this book. Again, I don't know him. He's not paying me to say this. I'm just telling you this is the way to do it. If you want to know how to fix a Seeburg, you get this book and you'll know how to fix a Seeburg. So it's telling you all these different, issues and how to fix stuff and what to do. And this is all from his expertise. I've been doing this for a long time. If you go on that message board, you can get in touch with Mr. Rich and buy this book. I would recommend it to anybody, and it's not that expensive either. So we're going to use the service manual, which has all of the diagrams and how to adjust things and everything, and then we're going to use Mr. Rich's Seeburg Mech Guide to help us get this thing fixed. Okay, and then I've got a couple other books here that I bought years ago that don't really apply to this box, but they're still useful. So this one is Seeburg Console Era Jukeboxes, Operation and Troubleshooting Guide by Anthony Miller. So these are the console era ones, which are the boxes the next year after this one. This was the last one that you could see that visible mechanism in. But, so it shows all the stuff and how everything works. These had the same mechanism in it, it's just you couldn't see it anymore. It was just hidden behind the glass. And so this tells you all kinds of information too. Troubleshooting. And this is more for the later boxes, so if you've got a later one than say 63 or so. And then I also have this one. Dr. Know-It-All Seeburg Volume 3 Reference Book. And again, this is from 63 to 86, which is like the console era ones. It says 17 years of Harold Hagen's Seeburg information compiled from the pages of Always Jukin'. So Always Jukin' was a magazine you could get back in the day for people that collected jukeboxes. And it's just, so in the magazine, there was this one gentleman who would talk about Seeburg jukeboxes. And so he would talk about repairs and things. So look, this is an LPC1 doesn't return to scan right to left. So LPC1 is a model of jukebox. And so this particular one had this problem. Somebody writes into him and then he writes back and telling them how he would fix it. And it's just on and on and on and on and on. How to repair late model Seeburg tweeters. In-depth things about certain models. Weird boxes like that you never see, and additional information. The Disco was a very cool one. Alright, so again, this doesn't really apply to this machine because it's a little bit older, but since the mechanism's the same, you're going to run into the same kind of things. And since it had the Tormat memory system, you're going to run into the same kind of things. So there's valuable information in these. So, but the most important ones are these two. The service manual you definitely have to have, and I would definitely suggest Mr. Rich's manual. Now, if you're working on a jukebox that isn't a Seeburg, you can still go to that website, Jukebox Addicts, and like I said, it's just a free forum. I'm just telling you where all of the people that know about these older machines are all hanging out, and they're all hanging out on that forum. So if you go on there, they will help you work through your box. But I'm going to tell you in advance, if you go on there and you talk to Mr. Rich and you say, hey, I've got a Seeburg DS-160, and the little round thing in there that turns around, it's stuck or something, it won't start, when I hit the button it doesn't play, you're not going to get much help from him. He's going to say, what part are you talking about? And the only way you're going to know the actual name of the part is if you got the freaking parts catalog, So if you want to fix one, if you've got a broken jukebox, Seeburg or whatever it is, and you want to fix it, if you're looking for somebody on a forum to tell you, hey, turn this screw and how it works, that's not going to happen. It's nowhere near that simple. if you really want to fix it, what you're going to have to do is first figure out how it works, and then it'll become apparent to you how to fix it. You know, so in this video, we're going to walk through how the thing works. I'm going to learn with you while we go along. And by the time that we're done, it may be a series of videos, but by the time that we're done, we'll have this thing working well. And the reason that it'll work well is because we know how it works, and we've made sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do, right? So don't go on that forum if you just want somebody to turn you what screw to turn. But if you go on that forum and say, hey, this is what I got, this is who I am, I'm going to fix this sucker, y'all help me out, what do you suggest? You know, maybe you can buy this book, maybe you can buy the manual, or maybe you've already got it. And they can help you suggest where to start and what to look at, and give you some clues about things that definitely need to be looked into. There's like a frequently asked questions section on there. There's lots of little tips about if you're just getting a box, what to look at first and all of that. So I know this sounds like an ad for that forum. I have nothing to do with it. I am a member on there, but we get so many people emailing us saying, hey, I've got a jukebox and it's doing this, what should I do? And we can't figure out every little thing on every little box that everybody emails us about, but I do want to make sure that people know that there are people out there and forums out there that can help you get this stuff fixed. So, with all that said, I've got all of this. This is what we're going to use to fix it. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plug it in and just see what it does. See if it'll play anything, or what's broke and what's working and not working. So I have plugged it up. I heard it click on, so they've got it set on free play somehow, or it just had credits stored on it. And it says make any selection. So I believe all of the records are probably in there, because wasn't that one the one that we pulled out a minute ago? So, ooh, yeah, here's what we got to try. Let's see if the Beach Boys work. So that's number U1. U1. Okay, so it grabbed H3, so it's playing the wrong one. Let's see if we can cancel it before YouTube strikes us down for a copyright violation. So we'll see if it... Okay, so it hung that one up. Now it's playing H2. Tonight I Fell in Love by the Tokens. That's the correct song for H2, but we didn't pick H2. So it could be that there's just a bunch of records stuck on the Tormat selector. F2. We'll keep canceling it until we hear if it plays the Beach Boys. Okay, I think it... Yeah, there we go. So, it started going this way, and it played... I guess it plays the... well, I don't know, but it started going this way, and it played 3 of the wrong ones first, and then it played that. But... the way these things work is they have a memory, that Tormat bank that we were talking about keeps track of all the selections. So it's going back down. I can see it moving through the back. Okay, it's grabbing something else. Okay, it went over one record, grabbed another one. Well, she got a lot of slick stuff in here. Janet, you had a pretty good selection. It's grabbing another one. So this isn't necessarily that you press U1 and it plays the wrong records. It played the one that I selected, so it did select that record. It's just it's playing a bunch of other ones too that could have been already selected, you know. So it went back to home. All right, so we're going to try a different one. So I picked U1, and it played 3 records before it got to U1, and then it played U1, And then after it hung up U1, it played about 15 more. And then it went all the way back down and stopped in the home position. So let's try one that's way down here on the end. So it's got to travel a lot. Let's see here. So the selector is in the middle. So the ones that are number 1, it has to travel the most to get to. Oh yeah, Carolina Girls. The Fantastic Shakers too, they're great. Let's try Carolina Girls. Q1. See, it found another one that it wants to play first, R5. Whoa, obscure Beach Boys song. So it's 1. Okay, now it's grabbing another one that's the wrong one. Oh man, the Righteous Brothers. That blue-eyed soul. Grabbed another wrong one. So we wanted to do Carolina Girls. Man. So we definitely got a problem with the selector. Or the... So another interesting thing is, it's not playing anything that it already played. That's 4. That's 5. 6. 7. Come on. 8. Okay, so sorry about how annoying that is. Like I said, people always want us to film everything, but a lot of it's just stuff like that. So basically, I'm telling it to play, it's over here parked where it's supposed to be in its home position. I tell it to play Carolina Girls, and on its way to get all the way down here to the end, it's got to go all the way to the end and then even come back a little bit to play it. It played 25 songs on the way there. So it found that little Tormat thing on the back, the little finger that was sticking up on those rivets. It found 25 selections that were activated. So every time it found one, it stopped and played it. Well, then it's supposed to deactivate it. So that selection is supposed to be subtracted off. You know, so it played, which one of these? I guess we went by all of these. Which one did it play? Let's get one where it's a good example. I think it started playing Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf. So it got the S7, and whenever it did, it started playing it. And then I canceled it, and you know, if it would have got to the end, it's the same as if you canceled it. It just hits a switch. And whenever that song ended, in this case because I canceled it, but if it would have got to the end, it would have ended the same way. It's supposed to say, okay, the customer got to hear their Born to Be Wild, subtract that off of the memory unit. But apparently it's not doing that. So the next time it goes down, it finds even more. Now, I thought the way that it worked, that it went down twice, and it would just keep playing until there was nothing left on the memory unit. So there's something going on with that. And it finally, when it got down to the end, it played Carolina Girls that I had selected, because the select in part is actually working. So the good news is I'm pretty sure this is like a super common problem with these. So what we're going to do is we're going to read in Mr. Rich's book and see what he says we should do about selection problems. And I believe the answer is going to be to clean the rivets on that Tormat memory unit. And we'll take the back off where we can see that here in a minute. Okay, folks, so I read in his booklet and it's telling me kind of how the thing works, and there are some little pins down on the bottom we're going to look at that have to do with the cancel. And he's also saying if you are getting random extra selections on a Tormat type phonograph, oh, that's another thing. Seeburg didn't like calling them jukeboxes. They like calling them coin-operated phonographs. So it's a phonograph. The most common cause of the random selection problem is a poor or missing ground. Then it's most likely this is happening at the Tormat plug. First thing to do is clean the plug socket. Use crocus cloth, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to look, on the outside of the RCA socket and tighten the outer shell of the plugs. But if that does not do it, check the grounds on the mechanism plug. Okay, so we're going to check that out. So I'm going to take the back off of it and look at that Tormat unit and see if I can tell what he's talking about. All right, so I'm reading through all of these books and just trying to get where I can figure it out. And I'm reading this Dr. Know-It-All Seeburg reference book. This is a good one because it's got readers' questions and stuff from the pages of Always Jukin', Jukebox magazine. So there is this part in here that I'm going to read, and I don't think they'll have a problem with me doing that on a video because it was printed in a public magazine. And I'm suggesting everybody go buy this book. I think there's other volumes depending on what year model you have. And then, you know, I was suggesting that people buy the other books too. But anyway, it tells you in here how that selection system works, right? And it's I was talking about how it's a really special system. I read up on it a little bit. It came out in 1954, so they had that mechanism in 49 or something like that, 48. But the selector was different before that. It had little pins, kind of like I've seen on the newer rock-olas and stuff. But the way that the Tormat worked is it is a computer core memory from 1954. So the whole thing is it needs to remember what selections you've made somehow. And it can even remember them after the machine's turned off. So here's how it does it. In a computer core memory, two sets of wires are strung through the cores, the right wire and the sense wire. On this one, it's actually got two right wires, a read wire, two right wires, a read wire, and a sense wire. The right wire can change either set of the core, change it straight from 0 to 1, or reset it from 1 to 0, depending on the polarity of the current. So it has this, inside that little pin bank where we were seeing those rivets, it has all these little donut-looking things that they call toroids. The toroidal donut-shaped core is made from a special magnetic material that has two stable states with magnetic saturation in one direction or the other. These states are often referred to as 0 and 1 or true and false. Now, where have you heard that before? That's what digital information is stored as. Everything's either one or 0. It's either on or off. You know. So they were doing this in 54 in the freaking Seeburg jukeboxes, right? These states are referred to as 0 and 1 or true and false. Wires are run through the hole in the core, and when enough current is passed through a wire in the proper direction, the core will change state. The core material is chosen to have a consistent current for the switching and a rapid change of state when that current is reached. Nothing happens until the current reaches the threshold, then the toroid magnetism reverses rapidly. So it's either a 1, and then if you run enough voltage through that, or is it amperage they're saying? Current. Are they saying current? Yeah, they keep saying current. So you run the power through one way, and it turns it from 0 to 1. And if you run it through the other way on that same line, it turns it from, on the read line, it changes it from 1 to 0. So anyway, in a computer core memory, two sets of wire are strung through the cores, the right wire and the sense wire. The right wire can either set the core, change its state from 0 to 1, or reset it from 1 to 0, depending on the polarity of the current, so which way the current's running. If a reset pulse is applied when the core is in the 0 state, or a set pulse while in the 1 state, nothing happens. So if it's already been picked and you pick it again, nothing happens. A pulse is induced in the sense wire when the core changes state. Okay, so let's check that out. That's very important for what we're doing. A pulse is induced in the sense wire when the core changes state. To write to a core, a pulse of the proper polarity is sent to the write line. Reading a core is more complicated since core memory has what is referred to as destructive readout. So this is very important for what my theory that I had on what's going on with this one. Reading a core is more complicated since core memory has what is referred to as destructive readout. In order to find the state of a core, a reset pulse must be applied through the write line. If a pulse is picked up in the sense line, the computer knows that the core has changed from a 1 to a 0, and therefore it used to be in the 1 state. If it was in the 1 state, the computer then has to write a 1 back into that core in order to preserve the previous state of the memory. This is known as regeneration. In the jukeboxes, they don't do that, though. So what it's saying is that after it's selected, so, you know, there's one of these little toroids for each selection. So let's say, I think U1 was the Beach Boys song. So U1, it turns on. So it changes this 0 to a 1, and it doesn't physically change, it's just the magnetism. So it changes the off to on U1, right? And the way it does that is it has a number line running through this way, and it has a letter line running through this way. And they send half the current down the number line and half the current down the letter line. So think about what that does. It has all these arranged in an array. And so every one of the numbers, so U1, V1, A1, B1, C1, whatever, they all get half of the current. And then every one of the letters, all of the U's, U1, U2, U3, U4, U5, U6, whatever, they all get half the current or a little bit more that it needs to switch states. And so the only one that gets enough current to switch states is U1. Bam! So that one turns on, right? So now it's a 1. Okay, so since the core just changed state, this pulse, the sense line, says, "Hey, something just changed," and it starts the mechanism moving. Right? Now, when it gets to it, the operation of the Tormat is slightly different. First, regeneration is not used. When a selection is picked up, the core for that selection is left in the 0 state on purpose. So once it figures out that this is a 1, the only way it can do it is by resetting it. Right? So I suppose the whole time that it's going along, it's resetting numbers. It's left in a 0 state on purpose. Second, there are separate lines for the writing, setting, and the reading, resetting of the cores. With 2 write lines, 1 readout line, and the sense line through each core, there are a total of 4 wires through every core. Usually the cores are arranged in a 2-dimensional array with 2 sets of write wires, one running vertically and the other running horizontally. A little over half of the required current to switch the core is run through 1 wire in each direction, depending on which letter and which number have been selected. Only 1 core will have an energized wire from both directions running through its hole. For this toroid, the currents through the 2 wires will add and will be enough to switch it magnetically. There are 3 main circuits in the Tormat-equipped Seeburg: the write-in, the readout, and the sense. The write-in circuit consists of the number write and letter write switches and a push-button assembly. The write lines in the Tormat, blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to see how it starts reading. The readout circuit consists of 5 parts. First, there is another capacitor in the selection receiver that is kept charged by the power supply. Second, there is a contact in the mechanism, the detent switch, that closes once every record position as the mechanism scans. So every time that mech starts moving, as it goes by each record, this little switch closes. Third, the reversing switch selects the proper contact on the scanning block. Fourth, there is a contact block on the back of the mechanism that scans across 2 rows of contacts, 1 for each side of the record on the bottom of the Tormat. Fifth, each contact is connected to a readout wire in the core for that recorded position. Thus, if the core for that position is in the 1 state, if it's selected, it will be reset to the 0. So the little thing's traveling along, so you get the mechanism moving and it's traveling along, and whenever it gets to one of these that's in 1, these little contacts reset it, and it resets it back to 0. Well, whenever it resets it to 0, the sense wire says, "Hey, something just happened," and the mechanism immediately stops and it plays that record. because it can tell that it was reset. So my whole point is, all it is my theory was completely wrong. So I was saying that it's, you know, I'm typing in U1 to play the Beach Boys, or Q1 was the Carolina Girls song, right? And then extra stuff's popping up. So my theory was, hey, it's not subtracting it after it plays it. But by reading how it works, we know that it is subtracting it after it plays it. It has to. That's the only way it would know to play it. It has to reset it, and then the sense line sees that it was reset back to 0. So what's really going on is we're just playing all kinds of selections. There's all kinds of extra selections getting added onto the machine every time you play it, which is going to be, like Mr. Rich was saying on the forum, where there's a bad ground, or the selector. It could be the selector is whenever you choose one selection, it's selecting 20 different selections or something like that. So, reading more in here. Okay, so look, this is also Ron Rich writing in to Mr. Harold in this magazine. And he says, he's talking about a Seeburg, blah, 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 blah. I have found out in the very long ago past that this problem, extra selections, that this problem usually is caused by someone spraying something into the selector, WD-40, and can be cured by washing the whole thing in a mixture of Tide and very hot water. The problem appears to be a very high resistance short more than a loose connection. And he's saying this is how you clean the Tormat. And then you clean it with carbon tet, whatever that is. Wipe the rivets and the silver grounding bar. Apply a thin film of Seeburg oil to the rivets and silver grounding bar. Then they changed it to say safety solvent. And don't use any abrasive material on the gold-plated rivets. And then Mr. Harold says his problem was bad contacts, but any leakage could also wreak havoc. And that was on the selector assembly. And cleaning the switch assembly, as you described, may be necessary in some cases. Regarding cleaning the Tormat contacts, my method wasn't that far off. If there is ever any corrosion or tarnish, use never dull first, helps. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so all of that to say, our problem is going to either be a bad ground or it's going to be in the selector because somebody sprayed WD-40 all over it. And looking at it a few minutes ago, it did look like somebody had sprayed something all over everything. So we're going to take a closer look at that, and I'm going to look at that the grounding on the RCA plug and all that stuff that he was mentioning on the forum, and see if we can check that. Let's look at this Tormat that they keep telling us about. The amazing Tormat is this piece here underneath it. Now, when I looked at this just a second ago, this thing was pulled out slightly, and this actually is the connector to the Tormat. So that probably was our whole problem. The bottom couple pins were about halfway out. So I'm going to clean those up. I'm going to figure out what Mr. Rich was saying to clean those with. He specifically was not saying sandpaper, so I'm going to figure out what he's talking about, what I can clean those with. And then we'll put that back on. And then the ground that he was talking about, if it isn't on that, they were talking about an RCA plug somewhere, so I'm looking for that. See this here too? See it? It's that same greasy looking crap that looks like it was sprayed on something. So there is a black plug coming down here. All right, here we go. So this says, doesn't say anything. There are some wiring issues here. So I need to look at that and see what they were trying to do there and if everything looks cool. They've soldered that on the actual RCA. plug. All right, so I need to clean that connection, and I'm going to look at this and make sure that's how it's supposed to be, and that everything is copacetic. That's today's word. And then let me show you the bottom of the Tormat. So there's all these little rivets under there. So we need to try to get those nice and clean. And then once you get over here, see the 4 pins? So they were mentioning that the 4 pins, of course, need to be able to move up and down well so that they're not stuck. It looks like that's cool, but so yeah, so I'm going to look at this, see what I figure out. I'm going to look at that, see what I figure out, and then I'm going to see what I need to do to clean that. They said that you do not want to use sandpaper on those contacts because they're gold plated, because a lot of current runs through them, so they don't, if you sand them, they'll start pitting and stuff like that. So I think he was saying that you just clean them with like a liquid cleaner. So I'm going to reread all of that and see what I can do, and then we'll come back. All right, folks, so I clean the Tormat, and I kept reading online about it, and I found several people talking about it adding extra selections. And remember, Ron was talking about it was a grounding problem, probably. So it's almost always a grounding problem. So then I found some people like John's Jukes talking about how to fix said grounding problem. So here's how to fix it, apparently. Now, before you do this, I'm talking about altering the thing. So don't do what I'm going to tell you to do. Go read John's Jukes website, and then decide if you want to do it. But if you do it and something screws up, don't blame me. And by the way, I'm an amateur on these Seeburgs, so if there's a Seeburg expert who wants to say this is a bad idea, I will be all ears. But here's the thing. Those 2 middle pins go along this big track in the middle that is covered with silver. And if that starts to wear, if like that coating starts wearing off the silver, what happens is that it loses ground. So the ground and the ground go into the selector or whatever. So whenever it loses ground, it thinks that there's a selection and it picks that selection. So because of that, a way that people have figured out to fix that problem is to remove there's 2 little tiny wires that go to the middle pins, not the outside pins. You need those. The 2 middle pins that run along that middle ground blade, that track. If you remove those 2 wires and then come down here way over to the end and add a wire, a ground wire, underneath this last screw here, right? You got to put it way at the last one so it's way out of the way, so that whenever the unit goes down, that it doesn't hit it and get tripped up. And then you put the wire over here and you zip tie it out of the way and get it out of the way. And then you run it down to the control box. You run it through a little 2 amp fast blow fuse, and then you ground it. So you're putting a fuse on the ground, right? So that if there's a problem, it won't screw up the transformer. Apparently, I've been reading about this for hours. So apparently this transformer, you can have windings that get burnt up if something goes somewhere where it shouldn't. So that, anyway, they suggest put a fuse on it, right? So I did that. I don't know if I showed you, but on the back of this door here that holds up, there is a leather strap, or whatever strap, that was normally hooked over here. If you take it loose and wrap it around, you can hook it under the door. It was designed like that to keep the door open. What a design, right? So anyway, we were trying to play Carolina Girls, Q1, Sweet Southern Pearls. Now watch whenever this thing moves. Watch the tone arm. See how it's over on this side right now? So we want it to select Carolina Girls and nothing else. But watch what the tone arm does whenever it moves. Man, just what a design. What a design these things have. I've got it turned down so that we don't get kicked off YouTube. But as you can see, it's playing the song. So we're going to cancel it and see if it hangs it up and if we don't get extra selections. All right, I hung it up. Keep your fingers crossed. We don't want any extra selections. So it's scanning for stuff. It'll scan it twice. It'll go all the way down and then all the way back. So after it makes its selection, it'll do one complete scan down and one complete scan back. And then when it parks, notice how it bounces off the end a little bit. Just what a design. Okay, so let's play a B-side. So let's pick The Righteous Brothers. R4, Just Once in My Life. So hopefully we won't get any extra selections. Come on, people. Yeah, baby, we're getting something special here now. So let's hang it up again. See what happens. We don't want any extra selections. Come on, baby, cooperate. So I think it'll go all the way to the end and then do it one more time because it's looking for selections. So it's done playing. Now it's going to search to make sure there's nothing left to play. And hang it up. Very cool. So I think the little ground thing may have worked, and I didn't come up with that. Again, like I said, I saw several people mention it online, and then John at John's Jukes, search that. I think it's flippers.com. I believe is his website. Has all kinds of tips on all kinds of stuff, and he had put up some pictures and stuff of how to do that. So thank you, John. I think you might have fixed this one. But that's just the selector, you know, so maybe we've got our selector problems fixed, but we still probably need to adjust the mech, work on the amp, work on the Tormat control unit in the back and all that. So we still got a lot of stuff left to do. And this video is getting really long, so we're going to do that in another video. But I think we might have fixed the selector. What do you think? You saw what it was doing, and now it isn't. Do I tempt fate and try one more? Let's try L3, Johnny Rivers, Port Side of Town. L3.